10,000 kilometers above the black void, Research Station Omega-7 trembles beneath the onslaught of the Kethvar Empire's tri-phase disruptors, an armada convinced that human technology is little more than tinkerers' toys. In the shadow of shattering force fields and cascading power failures, Dr. Elena Vasquez stands alone in her lab, wires sparking, empathy burning hotter than any reactor core. They've mocked her work as crude. They've broken her comrades. But they haven't yet heard the true heartbeat of human ingenuity. As the last console flickers, Elena's fingers dance over a hidden protocol, one the invaders never dreamed existed. Tonight, the fallen engineer will whisper humanity's secret creed into the galactic void. Invent, adapt, and strike back in ways no empire can predict. This is not the end of the first wave. It's merely the spark that will ignite 1,000 more. Brace yourself for mocked and broken, until the human said, that was just the first wave. The fallen engineer, Dr. Elena Vasquez, pressed her face against the cold metal floor of Research Station Omega-7's main laboratory. Above her, the elegant forms of Kethvar warriors moved with predatory grace through the wreckage of 3 years' worth of careful research. Their biomechanical armor pulsed with organic light patterns, each step creating a soft clicking sound that somehow managed to be both beautiful and terrifying. Elena's left shoulder throbbed with pain from where she had been thrown against the workbench during the initial assault. Her white lab coat was torn and stained with blood from a dozen small cuts, and her usually neat brown hair hung in disheveled strands across her face. Around her, the scattered remains of prototype shield generators sparked and smoked, their delicate components crushed under the boots of the invaders. Through the shattered observation windows, she could see the rest of Research Station Omega-7 burning. What had been humanity's most advanced scientific outpost just hours ago was now a graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams. The residential modules had been breached, their atmosphere venting into space in crystalline clouds that caught the light of the distant sun. The agricultural domes that had provided fresh food for the 200 researchers stationed here lay cracked open like broken eggs. Commander Zalthek of the Kethvar Imperial Fleet studied the human scientist with something approaching amusement. His species stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs that ended in hands bearing too many joints. His face was angular and sharp, with large eyes that reflected light like mirrors. When he spoke, his voice carried a harmonic quality that would have been pleasant under different circumstances. "So this is what remains of human ingenuity," Zalthek said, gesturing with one of his 4 arms toward the destroyed equipment. "One broken engineer, and her primitive contraptions." His skin shifted from deep purple to lighter violet, a sign of contempt among his people. Elena kept her breathing steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. She had studied Kethvar psychology during her years developing defensive technologies. They respected strength and despised what they perceived as weakness. Showing terror now would only encourage their cruelty. Subcommander Veltar approached one of the damaged shield generators, examining it with professional interest. "The technology is more sophisticated than our intelligence suggested," she admitted. "These energy dispersal patterns are crude but effective. They managed to hold off our initial bombardment for nearly 6 minutes. 6 minutes, Zalthek repeated with a harmonious laugh. Against our quantum disruptors and molecular destabilizers. It is impressive, in the way that a stone axe might impress against modern weaponry. Ultimately, however, it is merely a curiosity." Elena finally lifted her head, meeting the commander's reflective gaze with steady brown eyes. "You think this is over?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying more confidence than her situation warranted. The Kethvar exchanged glances, their skin colors shifting to deeper purples in surprise. Zalthek approached Elena, his tall form casting multiple shadows in the emergency lighting. "You are defeated, human," he said, his harmonic voice carrying genuine curiosity rather than malice. "Your station is destroyed. Your people are dead or captured. Your defensive systems lie in ruins. What could possibly make you believe this situation will improve?" Elena struggled to a sitting position, using her good arm to prop herself against the remains of her primary workstation. "You don't understand humans very well, do you?" "We understand enough," Veltar interjected. "You are a young species, barely 5 centuries into space exploration. You lack the advanced biotechnology, the unified planetary governments, the million-year heritage that marks a truly evolved civilization. You fight with metal ships and chemical reactions, while we have mastered the living essence of matter itself." A small smile crossed Elena's bloodied lips. "Young. You keep saying that word." Zalthek knelt to Elena's level, bringing his angular face close to hers. Up close, she could see the intricate biomechanical implants that seemed to grow from his flesh, rather than being attached to it. "Your shield technology, for instance. We have analyzed it thoroughly. Crude electromagnetic manipulation, limited power sources, vulnerable to harmonic resonance disruption. Our bioadaptive shields can absorb and redirect any energy type, growing stronger with each attack." "Very impressive," Elena admitted. "But you're missing something important about our crude technology." "And what would that be?" Elena's smile widened slightly. "It's designed to be replaced." Before Zalthek could respond, Elena pressed her good hand against what appeared to be a piece of debris. A hidden panel slid away, revealing a compact but intact communication array. Its bioluminescent display flickered to life, showing a steady stream of data in human script. "Impossible!" Veltar raised her weapon, but Zalthek gestured for her to wait. "Our bioscanners would have detected any active technology." "You see," Elena continued, her voice growing stronger despite her injuries, "while you were busy analyzing our primary systems, this little backup unit has been working continuously. It's been broadcasting on 17 different frequencies, using quantum entanglement communicators that we borrowed from some traders 3 years ago, and sending updates through biological signal carriers that look like normal space bacteria." Zalthek's skin shifted to a warning orange. "Broadcasting what exactly?" "Everything," Elena said simply. "Station status, enemy force composition, tactical analysis, estimated casualties, but most importantly, a detailed breakdown of your technology and capabilities." The Kethvar commander stood, his biomechanical armor beginning to emit a low, pulsing light. "You are attempting deception. Our quantum detection nets would have intercepted any such transmissions." "Would they?" Elena activated another control, and a holographic display materialized above the hidden communicator. It showed a 3-dimensional map of local space with hundreds of small indicators moving through the void like a swarm of fireflies. Elena's display continued its readout. "Human engineering philosophy is different from yours. You create perfect systems that do one thing extremely well. We create imperfect systems that can be modified, adapted, and jury-rigged to do 1,000 different things. While you were scanning for our primary communications array, you missed the backup built into the life support system, the one hidden in the food processors, the one disguised as part of the waste recycling unit, and about 15 others." Veltar moved to her scanning equipment, her 4 arms working frantically across bioorganic controls. "Commander, I'm detecting multiple quantum signatures throughout the local system. The signals are weak and scattered, but they're definitely artificial in origin." "Moreover," Elena continued, "human communication protocols include something your perfected networks don't need: redundancy. Every message gets sent multiple ways, through multiple channels, with multiple backup systems. It's inefficient, wasteful, and absolutely impossible to completely stop." Zalthek's armor began to emit that low humming sound that indicated agitation in his species. "Even if you have managed to send distress signals, the nearest human fleet is weeks away. By then, we will have extracted whatever useful technology exists here, and moved on to more profitable targets." "That's the other thing you don't understand about humans," Elena said, her voice now carrying a note of satisfaction that made the Kethvar unconsciously step back. "We don't just have fleets, we have communities." The main display screen, which the Kethvar had assumed was completely destroyed, suddenly flickered to life. Static cleared to reveal the weathered face of a man in civilian clothes, standing in what appeared to be the bridge of a cargo vessel. Research Station Omega-7, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the freight hauler Steady Progress. We received your distress call. Help is coming. More screens activated around the room, each showing a different human face. A woman in mining gear speaking from what looked like an asteroid processing plant. A family of colonists broadcasting from their personal transport. A group of teenagers who had apparently converted their racing yacht into something considerably more dangerous. Omega-7, this is the mining vessel Deep Striker. We're 43 minutes out and we've got converted plasma bore equipment. This is the passenger liner Gentle Breeze. We've got 400 volunteers aboard and we've armed them with whatever we could find. Salvage ship Lucky Break here. Our cargo hold is full of explosive mining charges, and we really don't like what you did to our friends. Zalthek watched in growing amazement as more and more screens activated. The communication array that had appeared to be a simple backup system was revealing itself to be a network of interconnected transmitters and receivers, each one connecting to another human vessel, another group of volunteers, another improvised weapon of war. "This is unprecedented," he whispered, his harmonic voice carrying notes of confusion. "Our intelligence indicated this was an isolated research station with minimal defensive value." Elena managed to pull herself fully upright, leaning against her workstation with her good arm. "That's because you think like an empire. You see military installations, government fleets, official responses. But humans, we're different. When one of us calls for help, all of us answer." The communications board lit up like a constellation, each light representing another ship, another group of humans who had heard the call and were coming to help. Cargo haulers and passenger liners, mining ships and personal yachts, families and loners, merchants and wanderers, all converging on the coordinates Elena had been broadcasting. "Estimated arrival of the first group is 34 minutes, Elena announced, reading from her instruments. "Second wave in 42 minutes. Third wave." She smiled. "Well, they're still coming. Last count was over 300 ships." Veltar's voice carried a note of panic. "Commander, our 3 assault cruisers cannot possibly handle a fleet of that magnitude." "They're civilians," Zalthek protested, his perfect military mind struggling to process the tactical impossibility. "Untrained, unorganized, flying converted commercial vessels." Elena laughed, a sound that was both painful and triumphant. "Exactly. And that's what makes them so dangerous. Military ships follow predictable patterns, use standard tactics, have known capabilities. But civilians? They're completely unpredictable. That cargo hauler might be carrying mining explosives. That passenger liner could have been converted into a missile platform. That little family transport might have a brilliant engineer aboard who's figured out how to turn their fusion reactor into a weapon." On the screens around them, the approaching fleet continued to grow. Each ship was different, each crew unique, each approach creative and chaotic. There were no formation flights, no synchronized maneuvers, no standardized equipment. It was a swarm of individual determination and human ingenuity, impossible to predict or counter with conventional tactics. "The beautiful thing about human primitive technology," Elena continued, "is that it can be modified, adapted, and improvised in ways your perfected systems can't. When every ship is different, when every crew makes their own decisions, when every weapon is a creative solution to a unique problem, how do you plan a defense against chaos itself?" Zalthek stared at the growing constellation of approaching ships, his advanced mind struggling to process the tactical impossibility of the situation. His species had conquered 47 different civilizations, each time using superior biotechnology and coordinated military might to overwhelm organized resistance. But this was something entirely new. Elena's smile broadened as she watched the Kethvar commander's confusion. "You wanted to see human determination, Commander. You're about to get a master class." The first ship appeared on the edge of sensor range, a converted mining vessel bristling with improvised weapons. Behind it, the void of space began to fill with the chaotic, beautiful, impossible sight of humanity answering the call. As Elena watched the fleet approach, she whispered softly, "That was just the first wave." The swarm awakens. The first vessel to break through the asteroid field surrounding Research Station Omega-7 defied every convention of military engineering that Commander Zalthek had learned in his 2 centuries of conquest. The mining ship Deep Striker emerged from behind a massive rock formation with all the grace of a wounded predator, her hull scarred by decades of asteroid impacts, and her engines glowing with an angry blue light that suggested they were running far beyond manufacturer specifications. "Commander," Veltar announced from her biosensory station, "the vessel appears to be singing." Indeed, as the converted mining ship approached, it was broadcasting an old human song across all frequencies. The melody was rough and defiant, something about hard work and harder living, but it was being sung by dozens of voices in harmony. Behind the Deep Striker, more ships began to appear, each one adding their voices to the growing chorus that filled the communication channels with an increasingly complex musical arrangement. Zalthek observed through the bio-optical display of his command cruiser as the human fleet materialized from the darkness of space. It was unlike anything in his extensive military experience. There were no neat formations, no synchronized maneuvers, no standardized designs. Instead, it looked as though someone had gathered every functional spacecraft within 100 light-years and pointed them all toward the same destination. A massive passenger liner, the Gentle Breeze, drifted alongside a tiny personal yacht called Star Dancer. A cargo hauler bristling with welded-on weapon mounts flew in loose formation with what appeared to be a luxury cruise ship that had been hastily converted into a troop transport. Mining vessels, salvage ships, transport barges, even what looked like a converted space station moving under its own power, all of them converging on the coordinates that Dr. Elena Vasquez had been broadcasting from the ruined research station. "Status report," Zalthek commanded, trying to maintain his composure as his biomechanical armor registered his increasing stress levels. 317 ships and counting, Veltar replied, her harmonic voice tight with disbelief. Mass ranges from small personal craft to vessels larger than our flagship. Weapon signatures are inconsistent. I'm detecting everything from military-grade plasma cannons to what appears to be modified industrial equipment. How do we engage such a force? Sub-Commander Theklan asked from the tactical station, his young voice betraying his inexperience with such an unprecedented situation. Zalthek studied the approaching swarm, his tactical training struggling to process what he was seeing. "We concentrate fire on the largest vessels first, eliminate their command ships and disrupt their coordination." But even as he spoke, he realized the fundamental flaw in that thinking. There were no command ships. Each vessel was operating independently, making its own decisions, following its own approach vector. The fleet wasn't coordinated. It was organic, growing and adapting moment by moment like a living organism. The communication array in the ruined station below crackled to life again. Elena's voice, still weak but determined, reached every ship in the growing fleet. "All vessels, this is Omega-7 Control. Enemy forces consist of 3 Kethvar assault cruisers with bio-adaptive shields and quantum weaponry. They have superior firepower but limited maneuverability in the asteroid field. Recommend harassment tactics and hit-and-run attacks." "Copy that, Control," came the immediate response from Captain Morrison aboard the Steady Progress. "We've got industrial cutting lasers and a really bad attitude. Beginning our approach now." What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded galactic history. The human ships didn't form battle lines or execute coordinated maneuvers. Instead, they swarmed like angry insects, each vessel pursuing its own tactical plan based on its unique capabilities and the creativity of its crew. The Deep Striker opened the engagement by launching a spread of modified mining charges, each one programmed to home in on the largest energy signature. The Kethvar bio-adaptive shields absorbed the explosions easily, but the blasts created massive clouds of metallic debris that interfered with their biosensors and disrupted their targeting systems. While the enemy was dealing with the sensor disruption, a converted cargo hauler called Second Chance swooped in from an unexpected angle. Her cargo bay doors opened to reveal not weapons, but a massive magnetic crane typically used for moving shipping containers. The crane locked onto one of the Kethvar cruiser's sensor arrays and, with tremendous grinding sounds that transmitted through the ship's biomechanical hull, tore it completely away. "Impossible!" Zalthek shouted as alarms began resonating throughout his command bridge in harmonious but urgent tones. "How are they generating enough magnetic force to overcome our biometallic infrastructure?" His question was answered when the cargo hauler's engines suddenly flared with dangerous intensity. The ship was using its entire reactor output to power the magnetic crane, a modification that would have been rejected by any military engineer as too risky. But it worked, leaving the Kethvar cruiser partially blind and vulnerable. The human fleet pressed their advantage with chaotic creativity that defied all military logic. A luxury yacht that had been converted into a missile platform launched a barrage of projectiles that appeared to be nothing more than empty cargo containers. The Kethvar point defense systems ignored them as harmless debris until they exploded in massive fireballs that lit up the asteroid field like a festival of destruction. They filled shipping containers with industrial fuel and mining explosives, Veltar reported in amazement. Each one has the destructive power of a military torpedo, but they don't register as weapons on our bioscanners. A family transport called New Hope appeared to be fleeing the battle, its engines running at maximum power as it streaked away from the fighting. The Kethvar tactical computers dismissed it as non-threatening, focusing instead on the more obviously dangerous vessels. Too late, they realized that the transport was actually positioning itself for a precision strike. The ship's pilot, a teenager named Alex Chen, had spent the journey to Omega-7 modifying their fusion drive in ways that violated every safety regulation in human space. As the New Hope reached optimal position, Alex vented the drive's containment field directly toward the nearest Kethvar cruiser. The result was a controlled fusion explosion that stripped away the enemy ship's bioadaptive shields and left its living hull glowing with residual radiation. The New Hope itself was nearly destroyed by the blast, but the Chen family had accomplished something that would have required a full military squadron using conventional tactics. "Status report," Zalthek demanded as his flagship shuddered under impact from another improvised weapon. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, Theklan reported. That converted ore processor somehow turned its cargo of refined metals into a directed energy weapon. The beam cut right through our bioadaptive armor." On the screens surrounding the command bridge, the battle continued to evolve in ways that defied all military doctrine. Human ships that appeared to be retreating would suddenly reverse course and attack from unexpected angles. Vessels that looked like helpless cargo haulers would reveal hidden weapons or execute maneuvers that should have been impossible for ships of their design. A salvage vessel called Lucky Break had somehow managed to attach itself to the hull of the second Kethvar cruiser using magnetic grapples. Instead of trying to board the enemy ship, the salvage crew was systematically dismantling its external equipment, cutting away sensors, weapons, and communication arrays with the same methodical precision they used to strip valuable components from derelict spacecraft. "They're taking us apart piece by piece," Veltar observed with something approaching professional admiration. "It's not a military assault, it's an industrial operation." The most unsettling aspect of the battle, from Zalthek's perspective, was the constant communication between the human vessels. Unlike military formations that maintained communication silence or used encrypted channels, the civilian fleet chattered constantly on open frequencies. They shared target information, coordinated attacks, warned each other of dangers, and celebrated successful hits with the enthusiasm of children playing a game. "Second chance to all vessels. That magnetic crane technique works great. Just grabbed another sensor array. Lucky Break here. We've got their port weapons offline. Someone want to take advantage of that?" "This is the passenger liner Gentle Breeze coming in with 400 volunteers who are really upset about what happened to our friends. Stand clear of our approach vector." The passenger liner Gentle Breeze had been transformed into something that was part troop transport, part missile platform, and part communications hub. Her captain, Maria Santos, had spent her career moving families and workers between the outer colonies. Now she was coordinating the civilian fleet with the same skills she used to manage complex passenger manifests and cargo schedules. All ships, this is Breeze Control, Captain Santos announced. We're seeing some beautiful work out there. But let's remember we've got people to evacuate from the station. Mining teams, keep those Kethvar ships busy. Passenger vessels, start preparing for search and rescue operations. Even in the middle of battle, the human fleet was thinking about rescue operations. Ships that weren't directly engaged in combat were already moving toward the damaged research station, their cargo bays being cleared to accommodate survivors. Medical personnel aboard the various vessels were coordinating treatment plans for both human and alien wounded. This dual focus, fighting and rescuing simultaneously, proved to be yet another factor the Kethvar hadn't anticipated. Their military doctrine assumed that combat operations and humanitarian efforts were separate phases of an engagement. The idea of conducting both simultaneously was foreign to their strategic thinking. "Commander," Theklan announced, his biomechanical interface glowing with stress indicators. "We're receiving a communication from the human fleet. It's unusual." "Display it," Zalthek ordered. The main bioscreen flickered to show Captain Morrison of the steady progress. His weathered face was grinning despite the battle raging around him. Behind him, Zalthek could see a bridge that was part cargo hauler, part weapon platform, and part family gathering space. Children were visible in the background, along with elderly relatives and what appeared to be several pets. "Kethvar Commander," Morrison said cheerfully. "I'm Captain Morrison, and I guess I'm speaking for this crazy bunch. We wanted to make you an offer." Zalthek's tactical mind reeled at the impossibility of the situation. "You're in the middle of a battle and you want to negotiate?" "Well, see, that's the thing," Morrison continued, his tone conversational despite the weapons fire and explosions visible in the background. "We're not really here to fight you. We're here to help our people. You're just kind of in the way of that, so we figured we'd ask you to move." "You are demanding our surrender?" Morrison laughed, a warm sound that somehow made the chaos of battle seem less threatening. "Surrender? Commander, we're asking you to be reasonable. Look around you. We've got over 400 ships now, with more arriving every hour. We've got miners who know how to use explosives, engineers who can turn anything into a weapon, and families who are really upset about what you did to their friends." As if to emphasize his point, another improvised attack struck Zalthek's flagship. This time it was a converted research vessel that had somehow modified its deep space sensor array to emit a focused electromagnetic pulse. The blast temporarily disabled the Kethvar ship's navigation systems, sending it drifting helplessly through the asteroid field. "But here's the thing," Morrison continued, his tone becoming more serious. "We're also the same people who will patch up your wounded, share our food with your crews, and help you repair your ships if you let us. That's just who we are." The communication ended, leaving Zalthek staring at a blank screen while explosions continued to light up the space around his damaged fleet. For the first time in his military career, he was facing an enemy that was simultaneously trying to destroy his ships and offering to provide medical assistance to his crews. It was, he realized, the most human thing imaginable. As another wave of improvised weapons struck his fleet, Zalthek began to understand that this was not a conventional military engagement. This was something entirely new, a demonstration of what happened when an entire civilization decided to care about something. And they were just getting started. Part 3. The True First Wave Commander. Zalthek floated in the biomedical recovery chamber aboard his flagship, watching through the translucent walls as his ship's living systems worked to repair the damage inflicted by the human fleet. His biomechanical armor had been removed, revealing the elegant form beneath. Tall, angular, with skin that now showed the pale blue coloration of deep contemplation rather than the confident purples of command. 3 days had passed since the battle, and the space around Research Station Omega-7 had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Human ships of every conceivable design filled the area, but instead of maintaining aggressive formations, they had organized themselves into a massive rescue and reconstruction operation. Cargo haulers worked alongside passenger liners to evacuate survivors. Mining vessels used their heavy equipment to clear debris and salvage useful materials. Even children aboard family transports were helping to sort supplies and comfort the wounded. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the medical bay, her left arm now in a biosynthetic cast that had been provided by Kethvar Medical Technology. The irony was not lost on either of them. The woman whose distress call had brought this chaotic fleet to battle was now walking freely through the ship of her former captor, receiving medical care from the same people who had attacked her station. "Commander," Elena said, settling into a chair beside his recovery chamber. "I wanted to talk to you about something before the diplomatic teams arrive." Zalthek's large, reflective eyes focused on her. "You wish to discuss terms of surrender? Your fleet has proven effective. We acknowledge defeat." Elena smiled, the expression transforming her face from that of a determined scientist to something warmer, more approachable. "That's just it, Commander. This wasn't about defeating you. This was about protecting our people and helping yours. I do not understand. You mobilized hundreds of ships, engaged our forces in combat, disabled our entire fleet. How is this not victory?" "Because victory was never the goal," Elena replied. "Look outside." She activated a wall display that showed the current situation in space around the station. Kethvar personnel were working alongside humans on repair crews. Medical teams from both species shared information and techniques. Children from the human ships were playing with young Kethvar, who had been aboard the assault cruisers as part of family units, a common practice in Kethvar military culture that Elena had learned about during her years of study. "Your people," Elena continued, "they're not prisoners. They're not even really defeated enemies. They're neighbors who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time." Zalthek's skin shifted to deeper blue tones. "This is not how warfare is conducted. There are protocols, procedures, established methods for handling conquered populations." "You're right," Elena agreed. "But this isn't warfare. This is just Tuesday." Before Zalthek could ask what she meant, the display changed to show a wider view of local space. What he saw defied comprehension. The fleet that had engaged his ships, the hundreds of vessels that had seemed like such an overwhelming force, represented barely a fraction of the human ships now visible in the system. Thousands of vessels filled the space around them. Massive construction ships that dwarfed even the largest Kethvar cruisers. Scientific research vessels equipped with technology that rivaled anything in the Kethvar Empire. Military ships that had remained hidden until now, their stealth capabilities far more advanced than the Empire's intelligence had indicated. "Impossible," Zalthek whispered. "Our scouts surveyed this entire sector. Human space is limited to a few dozen systems. Your technology is centuries behind ours." Elena laughed, not mockingly but with genuine amusement. "Commander, I think it's time you learned something about humans. We don't just expand outward. We expand in every direction, including directions your people haven't thought of yet." The display zoomed out further, revealing a three-dimensional map of local space that extended far beyond what Kethvar intelligence had believed to be the limits of human territory. Systems that had been marked as unexplored or uninhabited showed signs of human presence. Asteroid belts had been converted into mining operations. Dead planets had been terraformed. Even the empty space between systems contained human installations, research stations, communication relays, resource extraction facilities. "Your attack on Research Station Omega-7," Elena continued, "was like kicking an anthill. You got the attention of every human within 100 light-years. But what you didn't realize is that there are humans within 1,000 light-years. And 10,000. And more." Zalthek's biomechanical implants began registering stress levels that approached dangerous limits. The intelligence reports. The surveys. How did we miss so much? "You didn't miss it," Elena explained patiently. "You just didn't recognize it. Human expansion doesn't follow the same patterns as other species. We don't build massive, obvious colonies. We adapt to local conditions. We hide in plain sight. We turn places that other species consider worthless into thriving communities." She gestured to the display, which now showed detailed images of human settlements that the Kethvar had completely overlooked. A thriving city built inside an asteroid that had been dismissed as unremarkable. A research facility constructed on the back of a spacefaring creature that the Empire had classified as wildlife. An entire industrial complex that appeared to be nothing more than stellar debris until viewed from the correct angle. "We've been watching you for decades," Elena continued. "Learning from you, trading with you, sometimes even working alongside you without you realizing we were human. That mining operation in the Vega sector? Humans designed the extraction equipment. The communication relay network you use in the outer territories? We built the quantum processors. That medical breakthrough your scientists announced last year? Based on research we shared through intermediaries." Zalthek's world was crumbling around him. Everything he had believed about human capabilities, about the balance of power in the galaxy, about his own species' technological superiority, was being systematically dismantled. "But why?" he asked. "Why hide your true capabilities? Why allow us to believe you were primitive?" Elena's expression grew more serious. "Because we hoped we wouldn't need to show you the truth. We prefer cooperation to conquest. We'd rather be friends than enemies. We were content to let you think you were the dominant species in this region because it didn't matter to us who was considered superior as long as everyone was safe and prosperous." "Then why reveal it now?" "Because you attacked our people," Elena said simply. "Because you threatened our families. Because you made it clear that peaceful coexistence wasn't enough for you. You wanted dominance." The display changed again, this time showing the true scope of the human response to the attack on Omega 7. Ships were converging from across human space, not in hundreds, but in hundreds of thousands. Construction fleets capable of building entire star systems. Research vessels that could unravel the secrets of matter itself. Military forces that had been held in reserve not out of weakness, but out of hope that they would never be needed. "The fleet that engaged your ships," Elena said. "The one that seemed so overwhelming. The one that defeated your assault cruisers so easily. That was just the first wave, Commander. That was what we could scrape together in a few hours from the immediate vicinity. The second wave is still arriving. The third wave is still being organized. And if this had gone badly—" She paused, her expression softening. "Or you can help us build something better. You can return to your empire and tell them that you found not enemies, but potential partners. You can share what you've learned here and help your people understand that cooperation brings greater rewards than conquest." Zalthek's skin began to shift through a complex pattern of colors: confusion, fear, hope, and something approaching wonder. "You would trust us? After we attacked your people? After we destroyed your research station?" "We would trust you to make the right choice," Elena replied. "Because that's what humans do. We believe in second chances. We believe in redemption. We believe that most people, when given the opportunity, will choose to build rather than destroy." The door to the medical bay opened, and Sub-Commander Veltar entered, her biomechanical armor showing signs of recent repair. Behind her came Captain Morrison from the Steady Progress, Captain Santos from the Gentle Breeze, and a dozen other human commanders who had led the chaotic fleet response. "Commander Zalthek," Captain Morrison said, his weathered face showing the same easy smile that had confused the Kethvar during the battle. "We wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" Zalthek's voice carried harmonics of pure bewilderment. "For what?" "For giving us the chance to show you who we really are," Captain Santos replied. "For helping us demonstrate that humans don't have to choose between being strong and being kind. For proving that our way of doing things, chaotic, inefficient, and completely unpredictable, actually works." Elena stood and moved to a control panel, bringing up one final display. This one showed a time-lapse view of the space around Research Station Omega 7 over the past 3 days. The progression was remarkable. From a battle zone filled with weapons fire and destruction, to a rescue operation with ships working together to save lives, to a construction site where human and Kethvar engineers collaborated on rebuilding the station with improvements that neither species could have achieved alone. "This is what we're offering your empire," Elena said. "Not submission, not dominance, but partnership. Your biotechnology combined with our adaptability. Your million years of knowledge combined with our talent for innovation. Your stability combined with our chaos. Captain Morrison stepped forward, extending his hand in the traditional human gesture of greeting. We know your people have protocols for first contact situations. But here's the thing about humans. We don't really follow protocols. We prefer to shake hands, share a meal, and figure things out as we go. Zalthek stared at the offered hand for a long moment. In Kethvar culture, physical contact between species was reserved for formal ceremonies conducted under strict ritual guidelines. The casual nature of the gesture should have been offensive, inappropriate, even dangerous. Instead, after a moment's hesitation, he reached out with one of his forearms and grasped Morrison's hand. The contact was brief, but it carried more meaning than 1,000 formal diplomatic exchanges. After all, the best diplomatic victories were the ones where everyone involved believed they had won. As she watched the commanders from both species planning their joint future, Elena smiled and whispered once more, "That was just the first wave." But this time, she was talking about something entirely different. The first wave hadn't been the human fleet that had come to rescue Omega-7. It hadn't been the devastating military response that could have followed. The first wave had been the beginning of a friendship that would reshape the galaxy. And the best was yet to come. The end. In the months that followed, the Kethvar Empire would indeed choose partnership over conquest. The children who had played together during those 3 days around Omega-7 would grow up to become the galaxy's first truly integrated generation. And Research Station Omega-7, rebuilt with the combined technologies of both species, would become not just a research facility, but a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose to build together rather than fight apart. But that, as humans like to say, is another story entirely. Letting the implications sink in. If this had gone badly, you would have learned what happens when humanity stops holding back. Zalthek stared at the display, his mind struggling to process the true scale of what he was seeing. His species had believed themselves to be the dominant force in this region of the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of civilizations, absorbed their technologies, incorporated their populations into the empire. But humans had been quietly building something far larger, far more sophisticated, and infinitely more dangerous than anything the Kethvar had imagined. "What happens now?" he asked finally. Elena smiled. "Now we choose. You can return to your empire and report that humans are a threat to be destroyed. You can mobilize your fleets, call in your allies, and declare war on us. If you do that, you'll discover exactly how prepared we are for total conflict." She paused,